Hello everyone, thank you for having me. So today I'll start with an introduction to what digital art is today. I'm a PhD candidate at the National and Catholic University of Athens, and I study theory of digital art. I chose to start with a brief introduction to the historical relationship of art and technology in general. So to give a brief definition of the relationship of these two terms, Heidegger, a very famous philosopher, mentions that the matrix from which both art and technology were born is ancient art, technique. Technique, for Heidegger, is the basic way of discovering reality through embodied action. From ancient times, technology and humans seem to follow a historic course of co-development, as early as Lascaux case, the first representation ever discovered in Europe. We see that the need for artistic expression has historically emerged as a field for testing, developing, and showcasing new technologies. We see people representing the first use of fire, for example, on these representations in this case. At the high peak of Renaissance, at the end of Quattrocento in 1495, Da Vinci crafted the first android robot. He called it Mechanical Knight. And since the discoveries of the drawings of this robot, it seems to have been fully functional. He could stand, move his legs and arms, and also sit. Later on, in the 17th century, we have mentions in the primary sources of the camera obscura. This was an optical device able to reflect and project the images of the surrounding space and help artists represent realistic portraits. There is mention of camera obscura by the Dutch master Johannes Vermeer and also Italian topographers such as Canaletto. And to enter to the digital art itself, the beginning of this subcategory of contemporary art is highly associated with the industrial complex of the Cold War, and it starts in the 60s, especially in the US. It's a subcategory that was highly associated with think tanks, research centers, and universities because the digital medium was not yet accessible to the broad public. In Europe, we see movements and also cultural networks that help the connection of artists with engineers and also mathematicians. The Stanford Circle was a circle of mathematicians that experiment creatively with the digital medium. However, we see that digital art has not been developed in an art historical vacuum. It has strong influences from previous movements, such as Dada, Fluxus, Happening, performance, and conceptual art. The focus of these movements for digital art, the importance of these movements, is that they shift the focus from a unified material object, meaning a result, an artwork, to the process of creating, to audience participation, concept, and event and audience participation. Very important artist for the beginning of digital art is also Laszlo Moholy-Nagy, with his kinetic light sculpture and his idea of virtual volumes, what he called virtual volumes, the outline and trajectory of a moving artwork and how this artwork creates different shapes and how it interacts with the audience. It can be traced in many digital installations up until today. Last but not least, Marcel Duchamp. It was super influential for digital art because as one of the fathers and the leading figures of conceptual art, he also tried to shift the focus of his work from object to concept. But most importantly, he introduced the concept of ready-made, how an artist chooses manufactured objects, and he, as an artist, assign value to these objects and showcase them in a gallery as artworks. These ideas are some of the ideas that we can trace also in digital artwork. We will see further on the concept of appropriation. And here's some example of computer art, early computer art. This is engineer Michael Knoll of Bell Labs. He tried to create artistic patterns and formalize the use of random and algorithmic processes in his work. He's now considered one of the pioneers of early computer art. But also Bell Labs were super important for the beginning of digital art, as we see that engineers start to work closely with artists. Here we have, for example, Billy Kluver, a very famous engineer of Bell Labs, who worked together with artists such as Robert Rosenberg, Andy Warhol for Silver Clouds, John Cage, and Jean Didier. This kind of collaborations led to the organization of 9 evenings, a very emblematic performance. That we see that lots of engineers work hand to hand with artists to perform lots of technological performances. After 9 evenings, we have a very similar exhibition organized in London, Cyber Serendipity, the Computer Early Arts, in the Institute of Contemporary Art in London. And it was organized to much popular and critical acclaim. It was super successful as well. However, after this period, after the 60s, the first phase of digital art, we see that there is an anti-technological climate that overshadowed Western work in general. And this had to do a lot with external to the art factors, such as for example, I write here that in US we have protests against the Vietnam War, coupled with an economical crisis and economical depression and a political crisis that turned intelligentsia of the period as a whole against the machine as a medium that could dehumanize society. In Europe, we have uprisings against Fordism. Fordism was an economical model that prevailed after World War II and was based on lines of robotized labor, and it was very close to technology as a concept. And hence, again, we see that these social movements decided that technology is somehow not very close to humanity and not very close to socialism. This began to change again in the mid-80s with the release of Macintosh. Macintosh 1 was the most popular, let's say, personal computer of Apple, and it was advertised as a computer for the rest of us. This was the quote of the advertisement because it was a friendly to the user PC, firstly introduced to the market, affordable, and with a very easy-to-use interface. In the arena of art, Macintosh had drawings and paintings programs pre-installed in its software, in this way emphasizing, let's say, the computer's new role as a creative tool. After that, we enter the phase of what we call digital revolution in theory, the third industrial revolution, and that marks the shift from analog electronic technologies towards digital electronic technologies. And this has a lot to do with the evolution of personal computer. We see that especially during the last 2 decades of the 20th century, software and hardware become much more refined and affordable to the broad public. And of course, the mid-90s, the advent of the World Wide Web in the mid-90s added a layer of global connectivity in all this movement, in all this revolution. And especially in digital art, we see that it opened up art to an unprecedented multimedia experience. We see electronic music, video installation, digital performances for the first time. So this situation has contributed to a slow but profound shift in the definition of what it means to be an artist today. Algorithms, cyborgs, interactive works, hybrid performances, AI systems for the creation of art, robots, video games, artists as avatars, avatars as artists, have all penetrated the present cultural condition. Today, the definition of digital art is one of the most lively and open issues in the broader field of digital humanities, which in fact tends to constitute an almost self-existent theoretical territory of research. The difficulty in formulating a stable, commonly accepted definition is partly explained as this is a discipline that is constantly under construction, a work in process. So, to provide a definition, attempt to provide a definition here, we should say that, first of all, digital art is a category or a genre of contemporary art. This is not something that is given, since until some decades ago, we see that due to this technophobic climate, very important materials on art history do not mention digital art either as an emerging or even as an existing category of contemporary art. So today the best way, the theory agrees that the best way to approach this very complex subcategory of contemporary art, and very unexplored at the same time, is an interdisciplinary cloud of micro-practices, or an umbrella term under which older subcategories keep evolving, while new forms are constantly emerging. I have listed some subcategories of digital art here. We will see some examples in what follows. So, currently, we see that rather than defining a specific kind of art, the term digital art acts as a denotation of a highly expanding and at the same time quite unexplored field of diverse artistic activities, some more resilient and others less so, that are constantly shifting their boundaries, adapting and overlapping. This kind of approach has slowly but meaningfully prevailed in theory by many different disciplines, as this is a field that is by definition interdisciplinary. We see programmers working together with theories, with artists, curators, media philosophers, technology theories, anthropologists, etc. All of these are all interested in digital art from their own theoretical or practical lens. However, to return back to the definition, what exactly does a common user of the digital medium understand by the term digital art? The majority of works produced today use digital technology either to create, to distribute, or to storage even their work. We see visual artists that are more traditional, using social media and digital platforms to share their work and promote their work. So where do we draw the line? Am I a digital artist when I edit a photo on Photoshop? Or when I draw this landscape on my tablet? With a quick search on the internet, one is confronted with a kind of pop, anti-intellectual culture of outdated images, with endless pages of mainstream animations, and with platforms that each user can enter to and with simplified procedure create their own rough images. So what is the problem with that? The main problem with that is that these kind of images understand digital media merely as tools and not mediums. As the famous one of, a very famous theory of the field states, digital media can be defined not only as technology, but also as ideas. And this has to do with the complexity that we face when we deal and when we come in contact with digital media. Digital technologies and the cultural artifacts that they produce not only cannot be understood outside human, but also, in many cases, we see that they behave in ways that are essentially human. For example, digital media are not neutral. They have subjectivities inscribing their nature, they have agency, they have a performative nature and a materiality that is under investigation. So all of these topics lead us to believe that digital media exceed the instrumental use that were assigned to the brush of the visual artist, a more traditional kind of tool, for example. So while many artists use digital technology, how many really confront the question of what it means to think, see, and feel their effect through the digital? How many feminize the digitization of our existence? Let's try to unravel this a bit, and we do by delving a bit into the ontology of the digital medium. The first problem in digital medium, how complex is it, comes from the accessibility and the simultaneous use of the medium. So today, the creative medium for the production of art has become the ultimate medium of our time, with a simultaneous and multi-layer use for the execution of an extremely diverse range of tasks by most of the population today. The internet functions as a simulation of our society, where everything coexists, from the researcher, the artist, the programmer, to our local supermarket. Everything is on the internet today. As Nicholas Negroponte states as early as 1998, like air and drinking water, being digital will be noticed only by its absence, not its presence, meaning that we're entering this phase that this becomes normal, and we say in theory post-digital. And this is a situation where we very much find ourselves today. This is due to the fact that beyond the artistic, we see that various functions of previous media, like the typewriter, the radio, the calculator, the television, are all incorporated into the digital media. Ontologically, we say that the computer functions as a chameleon, imitating previous media, imitating their functions and their properties. And in this way, by the combination of all these media, we see the creation of new media and also new types of media. So when it comes to the arena of art, we see that digital is extremely radical to the traditional art making. First of all, this is due to the fact that digital artworks are not object-centric in nature. They don't have a materiality in the narrow sense of the term. Secondly, these pieces exist in infinite forms. We see that traditional artworks have a unique display. For example, even if we're talking about photographs or engravings, there are a certain amount of copies available in the market. However, when it comes to digital artworks, there are multiple originals or copies without an original. Reproduction exists in the nature of the digital, meaning that if I copy and paste this document right here, this presentation, I will create another document that it has the same ontological value as the original work. There's no such thing as copy in the digital world. And this is very contradictory to the traditional understanding of what an artwork is and how it operates. We come back to the concept of appropriation we see before with Marcel Duchamp. Appropriation as an artistic strategy marks the intentional borrowing, copying, and alteration of pre-existing images, objects, and ideas. This concept, as Nicolas Bourriot said in his famous book Post-Production in 2002, is intertwined with the nature of the digital. And this whole concept, as I mentioned before, contrast is it's a paradox when we put it in a comparison with the concept of authenticity of traditional artworks. So to schematize the argument here, we see that the question of defining and understanding digital art today rests on two opposing but equally important factors. One that always tends to push the field forward, namely the rapid development of digital technology, and one that until now seems to hold it back, the technophobic critical attitude towards digital media. We see that traditional understanding of art have acted in the past as an obstacle for an inclusive narrative of the genre. However, today I put some bibliography here. We see that there are so many fresh perspectives on what digital art is, and digital studies as a whole attempt today to overcome ingrained technophobic attitudes. So what is much needed here is a deeper exploration of technology, of digital technology as a whole. And we see that today, artists and some of the most interesting examples of digital art are self-referential. They refer to the digital medium. They challenge, comment on, criticize, or explore digital technology. I'll show 3 examples. So this is Gazira Babeli. Gazira Babeli is an artist who has been operating on the virtual world of Second Life since 2006. Second Life is an online multimedia platform that allows people to create an avatar for themselves and then interact with other users in this virtual environment, much like The Sims, let's say. So, in view of the fact that there is no actual person called Gazira Babeli, and this is and the identity of the person who controls her is still unknown, Gazira Babeli, on one level, is a work of art in her own right, an identity construction project in a simulated world. However, as an artist, Gazira also produces art. And she produces art not only on Second Life, but also in exhibition space and in the real world. On a second level, she works on this level of self-referentiality, as we mentioned before, because her work greatly comments of the manipulation of the phenomenal world of Second Life and its virtual results. Secondly, I could not but not mention Cypriot-born Australian artist Stella. He's one of the most famous artists in digital performance and cyber art today. That he explored human and machine assemblages. So I have a video here. Okay. His works focus heavily on extending the capabilities of human body. He uses advanced cybernetics, supplanting his body with robotic prostheses to engage in a scientific approach to human-machine system as a single operational unit. And lastly, Ashley Zelinsky, in her sculpture series named Reverse Abstraction, plays with the juxtaposition of human and machine perception. So all of these sculptures are expressed through binary code. She basically imagines it as if a machine could be looking at them and actually would be able to understand and conceive the same form that we are seeing through our eyes. The text is code. So as we see, these numbers here are all code. So she says, the text is code. If a computer were to read that code, it will see the object you are seeing. This is art you both can enjoy. So we see that all of these artists are very self-referential. They discover and they explore digital technology, but they are also, through different channels, participate in the general debate on overcoming obsolete understandings of the digital, a project of humanizing digital technology from a post-human realm of thought. So in critical theory and anthropology, posthumanism is a concept that seeks to conceptualize the definition of being human today by expanding the concept of identity. Who is human today? How much human I am as an LGBT person, or as a person of color, or as a person with artificial prostheses on my body, and putting into question the traditional idea about the human condition. Within the digital sphere, posthumanism understands the relationship between human and technology as a relationship of condensation of two entities, in the sense that the human does not exist today without technology, but neither does technology exist externally to human. As we saw in the beginning, the human civilization and technology follow a historical course of co-development. So as Donna Haraway says as early as 1985 in her famous cyborg manifesto, she believes that we have always been cyborgs. We began to fabricate ourselves to hybrids of machine and organism. In this post-human reading, moving beyond outdated ideas of the relationship between art and technology and between human and non-human, is manifested through the emergence of generative art. Is one of the most radical subcategories of digital art, and it has to do, it explores whether artificial systems can operate with a degree of a certain autonomy and showcase artistic skills. The importance, what we need to understand is that artists today construct these machines not only to get help from them, but also to probe the limits of the human idea of creativity and of human-machine assemblages. So the debate over the potentially autonomous creative skill of a non-human agent, a machine, is a complicated one because it brings back all the notions that we have seen about the technophobic attitudes towards creativity. And we have this fear that the machine will displace the artist from the creative process. The main problem in the future acceptance of these categories is that throughout the spectrum of the historical narrative of art, the creative process has been identical to our species. There's no other species rather than human that can create. And when it comes to creativity, we believe that this is something very metaphysical, that the talent is something that God sent it to us or something like that. So when someone argues that the machine can be creative, we become very critical about it. However, as we see the transition of art production to the digital realm and the wider coming together of the fields of art and technology brings question about not only the creativity of the machine, but also of human herself. Because for the first time we argue that we might have another agent that can be creative, and since that this is a quality that we believe that deeply defines us, but in essence it remains essentially unknown to us, maybe the creativity of the machine might be a very good way to explore our own creativity as well. So what I argue here is that we need a shift in our perspective of the other, of otherness. And to wrap it up, as Wittgenstein said, if a lion could speak, we would not understand him. Okay. Meaning that he would probably speak another language, and this is us that we need to shift our perspective in order to understand new types of either language or, in our case, creativity. So, conclusions. Today, increasingly, digital art not only illustrates but also triggers the tectonic global shift towards the digital, playing a critical role in scientific discovery and technological development, and inspiring cutting-edge innovation between art and technoscience. In this new digital competition that concerns all of us, artists are called upon to visualize the result of our virtual life. So digital art is not digital painting on a tablet. It's about something else, much more innovative, that might be complex with many and varied types, using media and technology to critically reflect on the depths and boundaries of our digital world. Thank you.